Hey yo, this video is going to be a little bit longer just because it's not scripted whatsoever. I just want to give you all my raw, unfiltered thoughts since finishing Kaiju number 8 and just kind of reflecting back on the whole series. Now, I know that it's been a minute since I posted on this channel about Kaiju number 8 and we'll talk about that as this video goes on, but can you believe that Kaiju number 8, our manga that has been running since 2020, officially came to an end this past Thursday? 5 years of an amazing series all come to an end. I think that I've been making videos on Kaiju number 8 since chapter 59. So to think that we have come this far in such a short amount of time is insane. And this story is nothing short of amazing. I said the same thing twice, but this final arc hasn't been my favorite arc, but I would still say that Matsumoto's final chapter for this series wrapped things up very, very well. It was open-ended, but you kind of anticipated an open ending with how much information we are kind of left in the blue with when it comes to Kaiju number 8. Part of the reason why I hadn't been posting chapter reviews is because I found myself not being satisfied with the conclusion in this final arc. Once we started getting towards these last few chapters, I kept telling myself, bro, the story is being rushed. The story is being rushed. Why aren't we getting this bit of information? Why aren't we getting to see number 2s 3, 5, and 7? Why aren't we going into more Izumo Tech type things? Why aren't we getting more into whatever it might be, right? I just found myself feeling unsatisfied with the series. That is the best words that I can use for it. And if you feel the same way, I really sat back and reflected on it. And I think that my biggest disconnect with the series, and I would go on a limb to say that you might be in the same boat as me, is that Matsumoto, from the beginning, I am not saying this is his fault, from the beginning of this manga, this story has been very character-centered. He has been very focused on telling the story of Kafka and Mina and seeing them fight side by side and how they made this promise to each other as kids and all these other people along the way that Kafka meets that also have these goals that they are working towards. From the get-go, that has really been Matsumoto's main focus with the story. In between then, he has wrote a dope world, bro, a really cool world to immerse yourself in. And myself as a reader became obsessed with not just the characters, but the world of kaiju that Matsumoto built for us. So I was very satisfied with this last chapter because I liked how things went with the characters. I think Matsumoto did a good job with how he treated the characters. What I find myself being unsatisfied with is how much is left in the dark or untapped potential when it comes to how amazing this world is that Matsumoto crafted for us. And I think that's where I find my biggest disconnect being. Outside of that, if I really sit back and reflect on things, and if you read the last 20 chapters succinctly, Matsumoto did his thing, bro. It was a dope final fight. And really, I think chapter 113 is where the pendulum really could have shifted one way or another for you, because that was also when Kaiju number 9 was basically dead in the series, and then we were introduced to the Daikaiju of the Meireki era. And I say introduced because that's just really the first time that we saw him in the story. But realistically speaking, Matsumoto introduced the name of this Daikaiju way back whenever Kafka was talking to Hoshina at the Ryuni Shrine. Hoshina was schooling Kafka about his ancestors at the Ryuni Shrine. So we've been known about this Daikaiju. It was just a matter of chapter 113 is when we really saw him in the series. And again, I think that this is where you could have went one way or another. Personally, I genuinely enjoyed Kaiju number 9 as a villain more than I liked the Daikaiju from the Meireki era. Kaiju number 9 had goals that he was going towards. He was smart, right? On top of that, he was the first kaiju that we saw speak. I remember being shook at the beginning of this manga whenever Kaiju number 9 could speak. We just experienced a lot of things with Kaiju number 9, so for him to get dumped out of the series at the very end and then get introduced to this Meireki Daikaiju, he was brolic, right? He was super strong. How are we going to beat something that's this strong? But that's all he really felt. He just felt like a brute force of nothingness, not thinking for itself. The most that it ever thought is whenever it saw the samurai soldiers and laughed because it killed all of them before, I guess. I don't know, but Still, the Meireki Daikaiju felt cheap compared to Kaiju number 9, and inherently it's gonna be that way, right? Again, as I sit back and reflect, we spent 112 chapters with Kaiju number 9, and then things moved towards the Meireki Daikaiju in those last 17 chapters, right? For our 16 chapters. So, of course I'm not gonna feel as closely tied to the Meireki Daikaiju. And on top of that, there's just some moments with Kaiju number 9 that the Meireki Daikaiju is never gonna beat. To be honest with you, I don't know if any villain got introduced to this story that any villain we would have liked more than Kaiju number 9. Seeing Kaiju number 9 sitting in the bathroom stalls playing with his phone and wondering why freaking his attack didn't kill any humans that he had set up. Seeing Kaiju number 9 also have the biggest underdog story in the whole series. Matter of fact, Kaiju number 9 had my favorite arc in the whole series, bro. The ant raid, when Kaiju number 9 was the biggest underdog, he planned out everything, dog. He split up the defense force. He found Isao. He fought Isao. He absorbed Isao. And then after that, he turned around and fought Narumi and Kafka at the same time and held his own. Kaiju number 9's arc for the ant raid was insane. We felt so on the bottom and so confused as to how we could even beat Kaiju number 9 at that point, bro. I remember making a video saying, is this the first 10.0 Fortitude Daikaiju that we've seen? So there is just certain feelings and emotions that Kaiju number 9 evoked from us that, honestly, the Meireki Daikaiju, no, even hearing the backstory of what he did to all the past soldiers, it was only going to make you feel so much because you're also not necessarily connected to the characters that the Meireki Daikaiju did those things to. It was cool to see Hoshina's ancestors, right? But I'm rambling too much about the Meireki Daikaiju. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the final arc of this series was not my favorite, but ultimately it concluded just fine. And if the final arc is my least favorite out of all the arcs that happened in this series, that's not saying much, bro. Because it was still a decent arc, man. It was still a decent arc. And again, I feel like I was more disappointed, not because of the final arc. I was more disappointed because the manga is ending, bro. There's so many questions that I still have. I still want to know about Isao working as a spy, possibly. I still want to see more about Narumi's ancestor that Kaiju number 9 absorbed. I still want to know more about Izumo Tech being shady. I still want to see suits number 3, 5, and 7, plus all the other Daikaiju that just got turned into suits at the very end of the manga. Plus, I want to see what ends up happening with Kaiju number 9 in the future, even though he's off in that cold chamber. Eventually somebody used Kaiju number 6 and that was originally the greatest cataclysm of all time, right? So times pass, things change, people change, and I'm sure that there's going to be so many cool situations that end up happening in that Kaiju world that we will not get to experience. And that is why I am unsatisfied with the ending of Kaiju number 8. But realistically, if you go back and take a look at this series as a whole, this was a short ride, but an amazing ride. And the one spot where I have to tip my hat to Matsumoto is I think that he ended the series at a good point. I think that he ended the series where he didn't have much more to write about the story. Again, from the get-go, he was very centered around character interactions and characters growing, bro. And even whenever he interviews and talks about Kafka, he talks about how much of himself he sees in Kafka, bro. Right? So it makes sense that he really does want to focus on that story of Kafka. We got to see Mina and Kafka really fight side by side. And that was what we wanted to see from the beginning of the manga, right? I remember seeing that panel way at the beginning where Mina and Kafka were standing next to each other side by side, going to fight that huge dragon-looking kaiju head on. And I'm thinking to myself, is that the thing that these dudes are going to be fighting by the end of this series? And obviously it wasn't, and Kafka wasn't a human holding on to some weapon. He was Kaiju number 8 standing next to Mina, but we still got to experience it, right? And that was a core theme of this manga, and something that I also wanted to share with y'all, bro. When I was rereading this manga, there was a quote that really stuck out to me, and it almost felt like this quote was Matsumoto having Kafka talk to his younger self But I also feel like it was Matsumoto trying to speak to us as readers at the same time, bro. And this quote was back in chapter 120, again, when older Kafka was speaking to younger Kafka, and he looked at him and said, "The path I chose after I grew up isn't what you envisioned. But at the very least, I'm going to go out there and fight in a way that makes you proud." And that hits, bro. Because how this manga ended may not be how I envisioned as a reader. But if there's one thing that I can say from start to finish of this manga, I am proud of the work that Matsumoto put together, and it is by far one of my favorite mangas battle shonen manga that I have ever read. And I don't even know why I specified. It's one of my favorite manga that I've read. It gave me enough inspiration to even come on here and start making videos to talk about a series, man. Like, that's how much I love this series. So to sit there and try to be negative about maybe a handful of chapters that I didn't enjoy the most, I'm not gonna do that. I really want to talk about how amazing this series was, how Matsumoto takes a premise that is so simple. This is not some like groundbreaking story. This is a simple story with simple concepts, and a lot of the time you even know what's gonna happen, but guess what? It's still so badass that you can't help but get hyped when you see Kafka punching through the face of Kaiju number 9 after he's putting all those finger bullets in Reno. You still can't help but get lit when you see Kafka Hibino come out of nowhere and save Ren Shinonome and then completely and utterly destroy Kaiju number 13 in the process. There is no feeling like seeing Reno go crazy for the first time with his ice powers and really freeze all the Daikaiju in a given area and tell Kafka, "Sir, I have this under control. Go and fight." Think about the first time, not the first time, just when you see Hoshina and Kaiju number 10 fight alongside each other and really making it happen, but making you laugh at the same time. Narumi having one of the coolest weapons that I have ever seen in a series. And on top of that, he's the sauciest dude in the story. Like, did y'all see the first episode of season 2 today? They made Narumi even cooler in the anime than he is in the manga. They made the anime even better than what the manga was, and that's hard to do. This series just makes you feel so many amazing emotions whenever you consume it, and that's the thing that I'll miss the most about Kaiju number 8. I do think that on the internet, I know all of y'all have seen it, and I'm sure that y'all are coping and hoping for the same exact thing as me of, could there possibly be a part 2 for Kaiju number 8? And I think that Matsumoto did leave things very open-ended. There's a possibility of a part 2 being able to happen, right? Isao gave Kafka that final mission. The utter plethora amount of storylines that we could possibly go through, looking at all the new Daikaiju suits, plus some of the old ones that we never saw. We can go back through again. We still have to revisit whatever happened with Haruichi and his dad. Why did they have that falling out? And what's going on over at Izumo Tech? Again, why did Narumi's ancestor get absorbed by this Meireki Daikaiju? The biggest question to me still, where did Kaiju come from, bro? How did Kaiju start? Maybe we'll never get an answer to that. Maybe that's just part of this world and Kaiju just appear because the same exact reason why bears appear in our world, right? Because they live there, and that just, it is what it is. I can't tell you why bears exist. They just exist, dog, right? And maybe that's how Kaiju are, but there's so many directions that Matsumoto could go in, and that's just from me thinking from a very closed-minded point of view. Even if he wanted to branch way outside of this, maybe he could flash back and talk about like the come-up tale of Isao and Hikaru really coming to power in the Defense Force. He could talk about a completely new squadron. We saw at the end of chapter 129, or the last chapter, that Soichiro actually tested positive to be compatible to use Kaiju number 12, which is hilarious to think about. I know Hoshina or Soshiro is going to be pissed to figure out that Soichiro is using the same Kaiju that gave him all that trouble. And yeah, man, there's a lot of really, really great things about this series that I truly enjoyed. And whenever you really sit back and think about the series, there's way more highs than there is lows. And I really implore you to go back and read the series from start to finish again. Another thing that I think takes away from a lot of people that come and try to consume Kaiju number 8 is sheerly how long the waits were between chapters. If this would have been a weekly series and we were getting all these chapters week after week after week, I don't think that as many people would have complained. And even then, it's a very vocal minority, right? I would say that the great majority of people consumed this series and they liked it for what it was. Because again, it's not groundbreaking. It's a series meant to make you feel good and get you hyped a little bit. Yeah, there might not have been too many people passing away. And yeah, maybe the Meireki Daikaiju brought back all those Daikaiju at the end of the series for no apparent reason whatsoever. But if you look past a couple of the flaws, you see that we have a truly beautiful and awesome manga. And I am happy that I made videos talking about this series. I'm happy I read it start to finish. From the time that it had started, I remember my younger brother Darzus texting me around like chapter 3 or something and was like, hey, there's this new series that I think you would really like called Kaiju number 8. And I read the first 3 chapters and was like, yeah, bro, I'll be there the rest of the time that this series is out. Never looked back. So yeah, man, it's Kaiju number 8 will always hold a very special place in my heart. I'm beyond happy that y'all tuned into any Kaiju number 8 content that I've made. And this is not going to be the last Kaiju video that I make. I low-key want to make a Isao video, just talking about Isao because that's my dog, man. Hoshina and Isao are my 2 favorite characters. And then I also just kind of want to see how things play out. Let's wait a month or two, see if we get any sort of follow-up news about the manga possibly continuing or getting a part 2 or some sort of other iteration that will keep going. If it does get another part, I promise you, we will be back and we will be making videos on those chapters as they drop. This is the Kaiju Hub. Don't let nobody tell you different. I will be here with you. And if he's done with the series completely, that's okay too. And I want to find another series to talk about, multiple series to talk about, whatever it might be. I just have to find my lane, find what I want to talk about, and find what I want to get serious about and commit to it. So yeah, man, I could rant about Kaiju number 8 all day. I was in a really weird place with the series probably the last couple of months, but I think the last month I've really come to appreciate the story that Matsumoto wrote, because that's the story that he wanted to tell us. And I appreciate the story that he wanted to tell us. I appreciate the characters that he introduced to us. I was obsessed with the world that he made. How many theory videos have you watched on this channel talking about different things that he introduced that might never get talked about, but we talked about it here, right? So again, just goes to show how much we appreciate you, Matsumoto. Naoya Matsumoto, I doubt that you ever watch any of my content, but if you ever watch this video and you've watched this far, thank you for the manga that you've made. Arigato. Other than that, thank y'all for watching this video as always. And yeah, in the comments, let me know if there's a certain series that you like. I'll be commenting back, talking to y'all. Give me some of your thoughts on how you thought the series ended. Did you enjoy the ending ultimately? Did you not like the ending? Was it more of a satisfaction factor like it was for me, where I just wasn't satisfied because I wanted more, right? Matsumoto wrote such a dope world that it left me wanting more. Regardless, let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. As always, love y'all, and I'll catch you later, man. Peace.